Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stew with JT Brew. I'm your host, Justin Taylor, along with my co-host, Bryan Toast Clark. Another edition of the NHL Around the Ice coming to you, Week 3 preview. Here we go.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping through, sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Hello again and welcome to the Stew with JT Brew. If you've never checked us out, this is our hockey edition of our football podcast, NHL Around the Ice with JT and Toast. Week 3 action has happened. We are ready to go. We got our new segment that we brought you last time. Toast takes the 5-on-3 two-man advantage. Let me break it down for you here. This segment, we go in the show, we talk about two-man advantage. We go over 3 different topics, 5 overall topics, 3 different things per topic. We go over from a hockey perspective, a fantasy perspective, and then a gambling perspective or / other sometimes, depending on what we got going on the stove. Toast, just for the viewers who don't know, Halloween is your favorite. You are a horror film aficionado. Yesterday was Halloween. How was it, man? I know you just had movie upon movie that you were ready to watch for Halloween.
Yeah, so I was a little, I guess, away from the television, not watching hockey for about 3 or 4 days. So preparing for this podcast was a little bit different because I was glued to a TV. I'm a big kid when it comes to Halloween. My favorite movie of all time, any genre, is John Carpenter's Halloween, 1978. So I'm all about it. I watch it every Halloween. I watch Halloween 2 as well. Yeah, I was acting like a big kid the last couple of days. Took off work and I've been down here in the basement watching shows, and my wife thinks I'm a little odd, and I get it. She's got a good point, but so I started watching some hockey tonight for the first time in a couple of days. It was nice to get away from that for a few days, but now I'm jacked. I'm ready to start talking hockey again.
Yeah, me and the girlfriend and the kids, we watched Five Nights at Freddy's. So it was something that my son had played that video game and messed with that when he was a little bit younger. So they had the movie came out. We watched it. I was a little nervous at first, but it was actually not too scary or too gory for a kid. So it ended up working out all right. They liked it. They thought it was pretty good.
And JT, what I'll say is nowadays in the 2020s, you got away from a lot of they're getting away from a lot of the slashers. It's getting more so into the psychological thrillers. There's still horror, but it's more psychological with the supernaturals coming out and stuff, like movies like Smile, movies like Barbarian. I watched It Follows for the first time a couple of days ago, and I'm like, man, I mean, again, they're mind jobs of movies. And they're really entertaining, very cinematic, but they still have that horror element as well. So, man, that's the new type of horror movie of the 2020s. I'm really digging it.
Yeah, I said they feel like a totally different movie. I know me and you last Halloween went back and watched some of the classics, and you just forget how much they're suspense ridden. Now, is there some gore in those? Yes, and as the older ones got more, they added more, but they were really suspense. They were really setting you up for those, what could happen, as opposed to just being in your face, crazy gore torture movies that we've seen come out in the last couple decades. But yeah, like you said, it seems like they're really turning into the psychological thriller is kind of the way they're going here late.
So you're messing around now, and you're gonna want me to end up doing a movie segment. I mean, I've already talked you into doing hockey. Now I'm like, I can already see it. Let's go ahead and do a horror movie segment for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna end up. I almost said something about doing this show with like a Halloween horror movie anthem, and I was like, oh, this will be like a 5-hour episode. We should probably save that for a special time, record it, and release those as specific episodes, because I was like, I know that could be a long one. So let's get into our first of our 5-on-3 2-man advantage. Our first topic: Toast trades away Connor McDavid. Caused some ruckus in the Discord this week. Said you came out and traded away McDavid, and it did not go well for you in the Discord. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm in a podcast league, the Keeping Carlson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. It's a 14 team redraft league. And man, I am last in the league in points. I mean, by far as well. And I'm not really accustomed to that, quite frankly. I listen to enough podcasts of my own, watch enough hockey games of my own, and read enough articles to where normally I'm a lot better than this, being last in the points. And again, it's not even close. So let me give the listeners a little bit of a background on why I actually traded McDavid here. And it was a little bit of shock, even myself, actually thinking about trading McDavid, but I need to take a really big swing. When you have the top commodity and quote unquote free agent in all of fantasy hockey, you're kind of sitting on a landmine. So I have never had the number one pick ever in any of my fantasy leagues that I've ever actually played in before, and I've never had any shares of Connor McDavid. So JT, it lasted less than 3 weeks, all right, that I actually had him on my team. But the format for that draft is I picked McDavid number one overall. But this format, they had changed recently in that league to where having McDavid was such an advantage. They would actually snake back around for the second round, but you wouldn't be able to actually pick in the second round. So basically, in a nutshell, I had picks 1, I had picks 28, 49, and 50. So you have to hit on McDavid, and then you kind of sit for a while. You pick one player, and then
Oh man, that's
you long
brutal.
time and actually then pick again. So they did that a couple years back because having McDavid in a year is equivalent to 2 players in one. So I went ahead and made a trade. Now I'll let you guys know what the trade was here in a second, but let me give you a little bit of background on my team. I don't have any players performing at all. And I have a good team. Steven Stamkos not performing. You got Tuck for Buffalo. The whole Buffalo first line has come out very slow. Jamie Benn and Joe Pavelski for Dallas. Man, they are a juggernaut normally on that first line and top power play. They've been quiet. Devin Taves, for Colorado. Again, he's no superstar, but nevertheless has been very, very bad. And then the goalie Samsonov for Toronto. I just had to drop him. He's been awful. I got some injuries to Arvidsson already for the Kings, and Logan Couture actually hasn't played a game yet for San Jose. So I'm getting desperate. I'm like, I have to go ahead and give him a trade. So what I did is I was looking for maybe 2 or 3 players for one, and I ended up trading McDavid for Tim Stützle, who is one of my favorite players. And JT, you and I actually have him in a dynasty.
Yep.
Connor Bedard. And Bedard scored another goal the last game, and he got one actually taken away the game before, so that would have been 4 goals in a row in 4 straight games. And man, he doesn't have a whole lot of help either. And their schedule has been absolutely brutal, so hard.
Oh,
I mean, he's going to score more and more in bunches. And
oh,
I got
they played one of the toughest schedules there is right now. I mean, every week we keep looking up. We're like, when do they get a break and play somebody easy? Because it has been a murderer's row to start the year for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, and JT, they got 4 out of their next 5 games. 2 of them versus Florida, 2 of them versus Tampa Bay. They don't get a break really until the 16th of November. I mean, it's just absolutely brutal. They're 3-6, and quite frankly, that's about where they should be considering the team they actually have underneath them, and that's fairly good for them. 2 of their losses, and I don't want to make this about the Blackhawks, but 2 of their losses are versus Montreal and Arizona. I mean, so that goes to show you. I mean, they got wins versus Vegas, and they got wins versus Toronto of teams like that as well. I mean, so they're beating some good teams. They're losing to some not so good teams. But nevertheless, so I got Tim Stützle, I got Connor Bedard, and I got Martin Necas for Carolina as well. So I got 3 for 1. I took a beating in the Discord. People's like, hey, how did you not get more for Connor McDavid? But what I'll say is, for fantasy managers out there, it really depends on how many teams are in your league. It also depends on the format of the roster and the roster makeup. This isn't just a league where you can just play forwards. You got left wings, centers, right wings as well. You only have a matter of 4 bench spots as well. So if you go look at all the teams that I could have potentially traded with to get the value back, and based on the teams that are actually kind of desperate for a trade, it just really wasn't there. So could have actually set up McDavid a little bit longer, maybe. But I'm 1-2. I was actually I'm going pretty close to 1-3, but I'll get a tough matchup this week. But you can't really get to 1-2 or 1-3 and 1-4 and decide to actually dig out, especially in a 14 team league where only 6 make the playoffs. So I was pretty desperate and decided to trade McDavid.
Yeah, my thing is, like, obviously dynasty, you're not getting rid of him. You're keeping McDavid.
No, yeah.
But in a redraft, I think sometimes people hold on too long to studs in redraft where you're like, hey, get rid of a guy, get yourself a chance. I've done it before. I've seen people like, how do you trade Justin Jefferson? I'm like, hey, man, if you can trade him for 3 guys that are going to start for you, it makes sense then in a redraft. Now, obviously, dynasty, you don't want to do that, but I didn't think it was egregious as everyone else in the Discord thought it was. But I just think sometimes when you play with a lot of guys that do dynasty, you get in that mindset where they can't separate a redraft from a dynasty. And they're like, how could you ever give up McDavid? But we'll see. And the only good thing for you, though, when you take a chance and you swing sometimes in redraft, if you miss, it's 1 year. You come back next year and you do it all over again. So if you're going to take a chance on something like that and make it a move, to me in redraft, that's the time to do it.
Absolutely. And I will also tell league managers, fantasy managers moving forward. And everybody's probably pretty aware of this, but just be mindful that you're going to get offers from other league managers, and they're going to tell you like how you should accept this offer, or when you let them know specifically what other offer you have going to their team, and they act like that's such a bad deal. Do your own homework. Don't always assume that everybody else is actually right and you're wrong. And the reason being is because they want that player. They want McDavid. They want that top end talent, just like they'd want a Justin Jefferson as well. So they're going to downplay other offers that you actually let them know that you have on the table, and especially if you have to let them know what offers you have on the table, which this league you have to make it public. That I'm actually in, so other different format as well. But just because they think it's a bad deal doesn't mean it's a bad deal, because again, they want their shot at getting that player. So do your own research and actually just don't always think everybody else is right.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to stick to your guns. I've had a ton of trades in the past where people are like, "Oh, you lost that trade," and I'm like, "We'll see. We'll see if I lost that trade." And 2 months down the line, I'm like, people are like, "I'll put the same trade up on a poll that I put up 2 months before," and people said, they were like 75, 85% one way. I'll put the same trade up 2 months later, and people like same way, 75, 80% the other way. So I mean, you got to realize things change, times change. You got to do what's right for your team in that aspect. So I always tell people, hey, get advice on trades, but don't let the advice completely make the decision for you. You're the owner, you're the commissioner, or not commissioner of the league, but you're the owner of your team. Run it the way you want to run it. And, if somebody says you lose, that's fine. You don't have to win every trade, because you've been in leagues like that with me where we're like, certain owners were like, dude, I can't even trade with this guy because he has to clear cut win, where he feels like everyone says he wins or he doesn't make the trade.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes when both teams feel like they lose a little, you actually feel like you're better off, because they're like, okay, we both weren't super happy with it, which means it's probably fair.
Yeah, and I won't belabor this too long, and we'll kind of move on to the next topic. But just because you make one trade, fantasy managers out there, and everybody else criticizes it, they don't know what else you have in store. So right now, I also have Larkin, and I want to sell high on Larkin, and I want to go ahead and get a top end defenseman and a top end goalie for him because Larkin is top 5 in the league as well. So I made the McDavid move, knowing that that's not my only move. I have another move actually
Mm-hmm.
coming, and then at the end, I have actually a plan to see my roster is going to be less top heavy, a lot more even. And again, I know that based on this format, top 6 actually go to the playoffs. I got a way better shot of getting that top 6 versus when I actually had McDavid and maybe Larkin and being very, very top heavy, based on how the draft went, right, and how the format was and kind of where I was at. Heck, I was lucky to get Larkin. I got him at pick 50. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so if you look at that, that was actually great. But yeah, have a plan, stick to your guns, go in there and actually do what's happen or do what you actually want, and in the end, you know, uh, you know, uh, like I said, just stick to your guns. So there's more trades coming from me in that league, and they just don't know it yet. But I'm definitely going to be making more moves.
All right, number 2 topic for us tonight: the New York Rangers, off to a 7-2 start, winners of 5 in a row, 10 plus goal differential for them lately, only giving up 18 goals in 9 games that they've been, a defensive stopper so far. Only played 2 games at home this year. They're 6-1 on the road. Really great start here for the Rangers.
Yeah, so I like their next week games. And given the fact that they are going to go up against a good team in Detroit, it's a home game. They have a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so you don't really have any off days for the Rangers coming up from a fantasy perspective. But Minnesota is struggling. I really really like the Rangers at home versus that, and then to actually host Columbus on Saturday is great as well. But this is a team that the Rangers, they're not really tearing it up offensively. They're averaging just over 3 goals a game. Really, JT, they're getting it done with defense. They're getting an amazing goaltending. I mean, Shesterkin is probably the best goaltender in the world right now. And Vasilevsky probably has something to say about that. He's injured right now, and he's done it time and time again. But youth a little bit more on Shesterkin's side, and given his body of work in the NHL in such a short period of time, he really is the standard that you actually want to be at. So, man, the Rangers, I really like what they're doing, but man, again, they're doing a defense and they're doing some goaltending.
Now on offense, like you said, they haven't really got it going as far as putting up a bunch of points, but Panarin, Kreider has been solid. Fox is doing some stuff. Talk a little bit about some of those guys on the fantasy side that maybe haven't exploded to start the season, but guys that it's coming eventually.
So, the biggest surprise, and this is going to quote unquote surprise most listeners to say, but is Artemi Panarin. And it really isn't from his point production. I mean, he's got 15 points in 9 games. JT, what is that? 115-point pace over an 82 game slate. I mean, so really he is tearing it up. He's normally an assist guy. He's a guy that gets you 25 goals, 75 assists for the 100 points. He's a guy that passes first, shoots second. So right now, his shot rate is at 15% this year, which really is right as career average. So fantasy owners, be happy about that. The fact that I believe he may have, he's got 5 goals already and 9 games. That's high for him. All right. So, but just know he's right at his career average. And why is that? He is shooting the puck a lot more. So Panarin is usually a guy that's right around 190 to 210 shots a year. He is on pace for 280. So he's up about 75 more shots than normal. So he's shooting the puck more. I'm not really sure what got into the guy, but man, again, don't think that he's overperforming with his goals being 5 goals and 10 assists and 15 points through 9 games, especially in the goal category. because the guy is actually just shooting the puck more. So it's going in at the same rate. So Panarin owners, you guys hit a home run. I usually stay away from Panarin because in a bangers league like we have for our home league, he doesn't do any hits, doesn't have any blocks, and a pass. He usually doesn't shoot the puck. So you only rely on those assists. And in the end, you kind of look at his point production, and especially in a bangers league, like, he's top 40, you know what I mean, instead of top 10. But in every format this year, he's a top 10 player.
Yeah, I got Kreider in the middle of our home league. A guy, one of the leaders of the team, a dude who doesn't usually put up huge numbers, but you can expect something. He's got off to a hot start for me. I've loved what I've seen out of him so far.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, he's put up 52 goals, and he really regressed last year. I think he was somewhere in the mid 20s, and that's probably more so. It's a little bit less than what he's accustomed to. He's probably a guy that's going to score in those low 30s, but he's got 8 points in 9 games so far. He leads the team with 6 goals, but he's shooting 24%, and that's a concern right now. That's about 10% higher than his career average. So expect some regression with Kreider, but for right now, fantasy owners ride the hot hand. You might even try to go ahead and fantasy owners sell high right now with Kreider. Get a guy that's underperforming a little bit that actually has the pedigree that really has the 35 to 40 goal scoring potential from year to year, and just knowing that Kreider has been very volatile. So I would, but man, he's looking great right now.
Yeah, I definitely expect some regression, but I've loved what he's given me in the early going. Again, I did not take him really high. Again, when he fell on those goals, he really dropped in drafts, and I got him at a really reasonable price. So the production I'm getting, I'm super excited with.
Yeah, JT,
Fox,
you probably got him like at what would you say? Probably right around 100. If I'm guessing, you probably got him in a 10-team league.
I think it was somewhere in that range.
Yeah, yeah, wow. I mean, for power play one, top line as well, or line one as well. I mean, it's a steal. It's a great pick by you, and hence why you're actually tops in our league right now in the home league.
I appreciate it. Off to a good start. Just got to keep it rolling. It rolling. 2 other guys, Fox and Bajinajad, 2 guys, that we've kind of learned to rely upon for the Rangers some points. Talk a little bit about kind of where they're at in the first 3 weeks of the year.
Yeah, Fox, again, I mean, he's doing what Fox normally does. I mean, he's a point per game player, one of the top 3 or 4 fantasy defensemen, and actually defensemen really in all of hockey. But he's not really shooting very much at all. He's going to get you assists, and really one other thing I kind of like about him as well, he says block. He blocks at a pretty good rate. You're going to get him about 100 to 125 blocks a game, but he's just not really shooting. If I remember right, I think he's only shooting about 1.5 shots per game. At the most, So again, you got to recognize with Fox, depending on your league scoring, you're only going to get assists with him. Right now, he's got 3 goals. That's a lot for him right now through 9 games. You know what I mean? So he's not going to score you 20, 25 goals. It's going to be more like the 10 to 11 goals a season. So expect a little bit of regression from the goal perspective, but he's doing what Fox normally does. And Zibanejad, 9 points in 9 games. But I tell you what, here's again, fantasy owners may be a little frustrated because he's only got 2 goals through these 9 games. That's low for him. That's very, very low for him. This is a guy that scores goals in bunches, but don't be discouraged, fantasy owners. He's got 30 shots on goal. He's shooting the puck. He's got the deployment. He's got the time on ice as well. And he usually averages around 15% a year on a shooting percentage. So I would try to buy low on Zibanejad right now if you can.
Yeah, as we head over to our number 3 of the 5-on-3 advantage, our gambling perspective, like you talked about earlier, this team is playing defense. It's the goalie is playing well. Sheskern is playing well. Talk about kind of where are we leaning gambling perspective with these, with just kind of way this team is playing right now.
Yeah, you'll see a a correlation here between the hockey perspective and I'm sorry, the fantasy perspective and the gambling perspective. They all really kind of tie together here, and this is no exception with the New York Rangers. You definitely have to hit the Panarin shots on goal, and I would have never said that in the past. I would have told anybody to stay away from that and don't even actually
Exactly.
touch it. But the thing is I don't really think gambling platforms have really caught on to the fact that how much he's really shooting the puck more this year. Again, on pace for 270 shots on goal. I hope that actually continues, but they really haven't caught on right now. So he's going to be 2.5 shots on goal. So over under 2.5 shots on goal. I'd be shocked if he's at 3.5 shots on goal. If he is, fine, you're going to get the plus odds. Actually, a lot of plus odds. You're probably going to get him at plus 120, which is quite a bit. But the reason I like Panarin for the shots on goal is I'm guessing you're probably still going to have value around or minus 120 to minus 125 for the 2.5 shots on goal. For right now, the way he's shooting a puck, and again, it's so out of character for him. That is great value. You're almost getting even odds there for him to actually make the 3 shots.
Yeah, and
And yeah,
if you're on FanDuel, you can sometimes they'll give you a chance at like 1+ shot, 2+ shot, 3+ shot, 4+ shot. So he's a guy, even if you want to push it down to 2, it's probably not going to be crazy bad odds. Like if you're going to parlay it with something else, you
yes,
could probably still get with a lot of those guys that are getting about 2.5, 3 shots a game. I mean, you're looking at like minus 195, minus 200, minus 220. With a guy like Panarin, that's not usually a guy that shoots a lot, there's a chance if you take 2+ shots instead of the 2.5, that you could maybe get him at like 145, minus 145, minus 150. So it might not be as high. So that's something I would keep an eye on if you're looking at shots on goal, especially if you're looking at FanDuel where they give you alternate options. And a lot of times on DraftKings, they give you just a set 2.5 shots, 3.5
yeah,
shots, whatever it is. But sometimes you can put those together as a parlay on FanDuel. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
yeah, yeah. Well said. And Igor Shesterkin, the goalie. So they're so good on defense. The Rangers are. So right now, Shesterkin, he's always amazing. He really is. He's only averaging 23 saves a game, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, he's not seeing a whole lot of shots, and the ones he is seeing, he's stopping for the most part. Got a very very good save percentage right now. But I think this is another uh, something you should gamblers should actually look at right now. The majority of goalies over unders on saves made a game usually it's not going to be at 23. Okay, I mean, so they're usually putting those at the lowest 27, 28 saves a game as the over under. So what you need to do with Shesterkin is you need to really wait for him to play a game like the Islanders, versus the Islanders. A team does not give up many shots on goal at all. The gambling platforms may not actually catch on to that so quickly, and they're going to go ahead and set the over under at 27 or 28, and you're going to end up hammering the under saves, the under saves for Shesterkin. So look at their schedule. Take a look at the team they're playing. See how close they actually play, or how tight they actually play with the defense. If they don't allow a lot of shots per game, and just know, of course, that the Rangers play it pretty tight defensively as well. 23, that's what he's averaging right now. I mean, you got to get on that under.
Yeah, let's move on to our third topic of our 5-on-3. A team we talked about preseason that we both loved a lot. We just thought this team has got a shot to be really, really good this year. The Dallas Stars, 5-1-1 record. They've looked really good to get things going off the start. A lot of talent on this team. Another team has been carried by their defense, but the offense, we know they have talent. They just haven't necessarily shown it at the rate we are used to this year so far. The, the main line has not got off to what we usually expect, fantasy perspective, hockey perspective, playing as well as it can, but yet this team is still winning. Good things to come still for the Stars.
Yeah, this is why I believe that I know they were my pick for the Stanley Cup this year, and I think they may have been your pick, JT. I can't
Yeah.
remember. And they were definitely one of those teams where they're a cup contender. There's no doubt about it. They have the offense that has not showed up yet the way they actually should be showing up. They're loaded on the top end, and they got really, really good defensemen as well. But they have great goaltending with Ottinger. And all in all, for the most part, they're fairly young. I wouldn't say that they're the youngest team in the league, but they're not old. So the issue right now with Dallas, and I say issue because like from a hockey perspective, they're 5-1-1. So what issues are there really?
Yeah.
But what I'll say is what's really standing out is that slow start by the top line of Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski. They're just not shooting a puck enough. So when I say that, they only have one player that's averaging over 3 shots a game. They're about 70 shots below the league average at this point as a team. So, and also too, their schedule really has not been that tough either. They played St. Louis, man. JT, stay away from and fantasy owners, stay away from anybody on St. Louis. They're not
Blues are
even
bad.
trying to rebuild. They're awful. They're worse than the Hawks. They're worse than Anaheim, and actually Anaheim's got to start off to a good start, whatever. But they played the Blues, they played Anaheim. The Dallas Stars have actually played Philly, Pittsburgh's been not good so far at all, and they played Columbus. That's not a very tough schedule right now. So what I'm saying is they're 5-1-1. They're beating the teams they should beat, and that's a great thing. But when they start playing those other teams, they're gonna have to start shooting a puck more. They're just not getting enough shots on goal. That top line, it really has not just produced the way you want them to.
Yeah, to me, it seems like this team knows they're going to win some of these games, and it feels like guys are kind of deferring as opposed when you get pressed by a team that you're in a battle with, you're going to maybe turn it up a notch and take more shots and take more chances. To me, watching them so far this year, it feels like they know they're going to win. And so it's like they're really like taking their time on offense, really passing around, really setting up shots as opposed to just coming out firing and be like, oh, I'm just going to take this bam, bam, bam. It really seems like they're being more calculated. I expect when they're in more dogfights, that's going to change a little bit when the pressure's on, but it definitely seems like they're more calculated. They kind of feel like they know they're going to win these games. And so they're just trying to get the best shots possible as opposed to just putting the puck on the net.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I quite frankly, JT, I didn't even really think about that angle. And as a team as talented as Dallas, and having the success they've actually had, honestly, that's probably what they're doing. So fantasy owners, don't be discouraged, by what you've actually seen from the studs in Dallas. I mean, they're getting it done. They're winning. They hadn't forgot how to play hockey and actually forget how to put the puck in the back of the net. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think they're good. You're going to see these guys hit eventually. They're going to get some pressure. They're going to start turning it up. So you definitely don't want to bail on any of those guys too early. Jumping into, for fantasy wise, we always talk about this. When guys are slightly underperforming, they're not playing bad, which is no one on Dallas is playing bad, but they're not performing up to what classic expectations would be for fantasy. It's a buy window, correct?
Absolutely. That's spot on. Pavelski, hence Robertson, that top line, it's absolutely loaded. And even throwing a Heiskanen in there as the power play one quarterback on defense. And I even love Wyatt Johnston as well, the young wing that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are great players. I mean, when I say great players, maybe great line, right? And Robertson is their great player. Pavelski and Hintz and Heiskanen, they're really, really good. Johnson's the young stud, but the time to buy low is now. The power play is only going at a 9% clip right now. The league average 20%. And look at this top power play with those guys. They should
Ton
be
of talent.
25. So that is not going to continue. So again, look at those guys on your team right now that traditionally, like the Frank Vetranos from Anaheim, right? I mean, this is ridiculous. He's leading the league with 9 goals. I mean, come on. he's shooting at a 35% clip, and we'll get into Vetrano maybe later on. But trade those guys for a guy like Pavelski, where Pavelski's been quiet so far. But Dallas wins again tonight. They all woke up. All their big guns actually woke up versus Calgary tonight. They end up winning 4-3. They got a lot of points from their big guns there. That their top line actually produced. Now they're 6-1-1. So the time to actually buy on Dallas is now, especially for those frustrated fantasy owners that made us not be plugged into a lot of the analytics.
Another thing we like to look at once we get into the gambling perspective is we like to see where teams have gone on a big lull where we can hit when it comes back up. And
Yes.
Dallas is right there on the power play, like you said. They are way below league average on power play, even though they've got a ton of talent. The bounce back is coming. We just got to figure out what it is, and we got to jump on it and bet on it.
Yeah, and real quick before we get into a little bit of the gambling perspective here, not a whole lot of league managers want to give up Rupe Hentz and Jason Robertson and even Miro Heiskanen as the defenseman, but Pavelski and Jamie Benn, those are guys that have actually proven they put up a lot of points in bunches. They can be had right now, like JT was just saying. Yeah. Go get those guys right now because their best hockey's ahead of them. I got shares of them. Heck, in the league, I traded McDavid in. I got Pavelski. I got Ben. I'm pretty frustrated, but looking at the analytics, I'm like, it's coming. It's coming. So from a gambling perspective, yeah, they only got 2 power play goals all season long from this team. In 9 games, only 2 power play goals from this team. It's hard to fathom. Nobody would have predicted that. If you would have put a bet on that, you would have actually been losing a heck of a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. So what you need to do, gamblers, is wait till they actually have maybe 2 to 3 power play goals in one game. As soon as that happens, that one game, you need to pounce that next game from a gambling perspective. And then go ahead and get on the power play point. And again, I'm always big. You don't have to get Pavelski, Hentz, Robertson, Heiskanen. Pavelski, Hentz, Robertson, those big guys. Get the defenseman, Heiskanen. He's been relatively quiet so far. I guarantee a power play point, if they haven't caught on to that once they kind of explode in one game, he's going to be plus 350 to plus 400 for a power play point. And this is a team that once they get going and actually have that success they normally have on the power play, I mean, 9%, that's crazy. It's just going to explode. That's what's going to happen. So that is your play. Look at like Miro Heiskanen for a power play point. Once they get going, jump on the next game.
All right, our number 4 topic on our 5-on-3 is the Vancouver Canucks. Hockey perspective, 6-2-1. Got off to a great start against Edmonton. Part of their bad start was because the Canucks came out ready to play. They've looked so much better than last year so far. Rick Tocchet's got this team, midway through. It's crazy how much better they look to start off the beginning of the year. It seems like they finally started to do some things that everyone thought they would do the last couple of years and are finally getting it together. They've had an easy schedule, which helps, but that allows teams to kind of get themselves settled, get it together. So it's encouraging because they've won some games. Tell us, talk a little about where we think we're at here with the Vancouver Canucks.
So you mentioned Rick Tocchet taking over as coach, JT, and I think he took over midway through last season. And I did some checking because I'm not a Canucks fan, but they're 26-14-5 since he took over. They were so bad when they started off last season. The previous at the beginning of last year, for the first half of the season, they were awful, and they shouldn't have been. They got Pedersen, they got Miller, they got Kuzmenko, they got Besser, they got Hughes, they got the goalie Demko. They got a lot of talent, and there was no reason they should have been playing as bad as they were playing. So this year, completely different. Like you said, with a 6-2-1 start, they're a pretty complete team because they have a lot of offensive talent, and Demko's really, really getting it done. So that balance. They're scoring at a great pace. And again, did some checking today, and I knew the goaltending was good. Didn't realize it was as good as it's been. Their goaltending as a team, and Demko is really most to take credit for that. They're at a 944 save percentage through 9 games. Okay, is that sustainable? Probably not, but honestly, I could see 920, 925 being sustainable for a while, and that's not that far off. So this 6-2-1 record is not a mirage. I mean, they're pretty good. So and I mean, you look at their top end talent on offense, and then with their they're back in it, and they got Quinn Hughes as the offensive defenseman there as well. They have the mark of a pretty good team.
Fantasy wise, we know about kind of the big dogs on this team, like you talked about. A lot of talent here. Is there some other guys that you want to keep an eye out that maybe, some of the novice guys in your league aren't paying attention to?
Yeah, the 27-year-old rookie from last year, the Russian Andrei Kuzmenko. Um, so people may say that he hasn't really got it going yet after scoring over 30 goals and 30 assists again as a 27-year-old, rookie. I am a little concerned with his time on ice so far this year. He's only averaging about 13 and a half minutes time on ice, and that does concern me. But he has 2 goals, he has 5 assists, so that's 7 points through 9 games. That's pretty darn good. Deployment's good. He's on line one, power play one. But here's the deal. Here's why I'm a little concerned, JT, with Kuzmenko owners, and I'm one Kuzmenko owners in the same league again. Is I have McDavid and I traded. That just kind of shows you again. I'm just everywhere in that league. Kuzmenko last year shot 28%. That's insane. That's insane. Nobody shoots 28% for a season, let alone a 27-year-old rookie. That's not sustainable. This year he's 13%. 13%. He may be a guy that shoots at a pretty high rate. So I would say, what's normal for him is probably 17, 18% nevertheless. So that's probably more the average. Here's the play. I would say for owners right now, it's Kuzmenko. Knowing what he did last year at 28%, knowing that he's going to drop probably on average at least 10 to 12 percentage points this year on the shot percentage, given the fact that he's got the same team, the same line mates with him this year. So he's probably going to shoot the puck at the same rate. And who knows, maybe even less. If once he scores maybe say 3 goals in a 4-game span, I'd try to sell him. I'd sell high. I would actually go ahead and just try to get rid of him at this point. That's what I'm going to try to do. So because he's very unlikely to replicate that goal pace he was on last year, given the shooting percentage. So that's the only thing from a fantasy perspective that sticks out to me on this team, and Kuzmenko kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. So gambling perspective, let's take a look at this. This is a team last year for most of the year we were betting against all year because they just were bad. And they were the team I was waiting for someone to get down like Edmonton. They get down 2-0, and I'm jumping on the live bet Edmonton money line. Yeah. Because they're going to score, and they're going to come back because for some reason, even with good goalie play and good defense, Vancouver just gave up 1 million goals last year. They let everyone back in it. So that was last year. Hasn't been the case this year as I bit the dust the first couple of games against Vancouver and Edmonton when they got down. Man. I was like, oh, this is a perfect example. Edmonton, jump on that live bet. I jumped on those. Absolutely not. Edmonton just fell apart, and Vancouver did what most of the time teams do is they actually just extend that lead as opposed to getting worked. So I have obviously regressed, changed my betting habits on Vancouver since then. Anything for betting perspective jumping out to you with this Canucks team?
Yeah, their power play this year is kind of doing what Kuzmenko did individually last year. Very, very high rate of success on the power play. They're at a 26% clip on the power play. Just so you know, Edmonton actually was at like a low 30s last year, which is an all-time league high for power play. So it's early in the season. but nevertheless, when you actually have the pedigree of the players you have on this team offensively, again with Hughes, with Pedersen, with Besser, with Miller, with Kuzmenko as well on that top line, they're going to get theirs. That's what's going to happen. So, but 26%, as good as they are, that's not sustainable. So right now, while they're riding that power play high, considering Kuzmenko doesn't really have a whole lot of goals, but he does have 5 assists in 9 games, he's going to eventually touch the puck more. And he's going to shoot at a little bit of a higher rate than what he's shooting at now, just a little bit. So I like him to score a power play point. I would imagine a power play point right now for a guy like Kuzmenko is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a plus 300. And so the game to play him and to play the power play point for Kuzmenko, and again, you can pick Pedersen if you want. You can pick Hughes if you want, but Kuzmenko will have the best odds. They play Edmonton at home on Monday, November 6th. And right now, Edmonton, they've struggled. They have not been good on the penalty kill as well. If I remember right, they're only like at a 67% rate of actually killing penalties. That's like third or fourth worst in the league. So this may just be the time to play it. Again, circle your calendars for Monday, November 6th versus Edmonton. That is a home game for Vancouver. So play the Kuzmenko power play point.
Moving on to our fifth take of our 5-on-3 2-man advantage, the Florida Panthers. Now, this is a team, pretty high expectations coming into the season. A team that looked really good last year. They're 4-3-1 so far. They've only scored 22 goals in 8 games. That's under 3 goals a game. Not the high power offense we're used to from Florida with all that talent. Everyone who took a lot of their players early on in their fantasy drafts, you're wondering what is the heck is happening in Florida. This is a good offensive team that just really right now is not putting up equal offensive numbers to who they are. Right now, only guy looking really solid is Sam Reinhart. It's crazy. He's the one guy doing numbers for him. No one else is really lighting the lamp. No one else is really putting up huge numbers. Matthew Tkachuk, who I've got on numerous teams, 2.9%. And I whisper it because it's so terrible. 2.9% is his shooting percentage so far right now. He has 1 goal on the season, and the 1 goal he got, he was sitting on my bench in a league because I forgot to put him in. Unbelievable. Just a tough start for the Panthers. A team I typically like to bet on, a team I typically like to take the overs. But for hockey right now, man, they are off to a rough start. 4-3-1 isn't terrible, but they just do not look like the Florida Panthers we expected.
Yeah, you wonder, JT, if there's just a little bit of a hangover following that deep run they had in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, going to the Cup Finals. That was their first time doing that. They again had that deep run. I know Kachuk actually, if I remember right, he didn't play in games maybe game 5 or game 6. I think he had a ruptured spleen,
Yeah,
something crazy like that.
he had a pretty bad injury where he missed quite a few games, and he ended up trying to play
Was
through
a
some
sternum
pretty
maybe,
bad
or
injuries.
yeah, it was a
Yeah, he
fractured
had a
sternum or a
sternum
ruptured
injury.
spleen, or yeah,
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, but he tried to fight through it. He played 1 game and he was
yes,
dying. I mean, dying, and he played anyway. And then the very next game, as soon as the game was over, they're like, "Oh, he can't play." They're like, "He's out." Like the next game, they're like, "No, he's out at least 1 game, maybe 2." And obviously that hurt them in the playoffs. But man, when you're not a team used to running, making that run deep in the playoffs, it can really wear you down. An extra month of the season is something that your body's not used to, and then you add injury on top of it, and it's we always talk about it. The team that loses in the championship,
yeah.
you always are going to have some kind of hangover. You were this freaking close to getting it done, to winning everything you've ever worked for, and you don't do it. You're going to get a disappointment. You're going to have a letdown. It just happens.
Yeah, you play into June, and you go to training camp in September, and you start your season in early October, and you play all the way into June. We talk about the longest seasons. in baseball, how long baseball is, and hockey's no exception as well. I mean, if you're going to go wire to wire, it's a long season again, like to lose it, so but that's kind of, that kind of leads us in that fantasy perspective, JT. We talk about our other perspective here on the 5-on-3 is this team right now is being carried by Sam Reinhart and Evan Rodriguez, which is really not what you expected. You expect them to actually be carried by Barkov, by Matthew Tkachuk, by Carter Verhaeghe, and then Reinhart's been a good player, and Rodriguez has actually been kind of a role player, but those are two guys carrying them right now. Now, Reinhart shoot at 26%, 8 goals in 8 games. That's not sustainable. That's going to regress. Yeah. But I tell you, Reinhardt's not going to be available in your leagues, but Rodriguez, especially in those 10 team like home leagues, you might be able to find Rodriguez out there, but the time on finding Reinhardt's passed. That's not going to actually happen. And we talked about the potentially for owners to go ahead and sell high on them, but honestly, I wouldn't really want to sell Reinhardt right now. He's got 8 goals in 8 games. I know that's not going to continue, but nevertheless, Tkachuk really hasn't even got going now. He's got 6 assists, I believe, maybe in 8 games. So he's scoring. He's just not actually scoring the puck. But, Reinhardt is at 26%. So that's going to regress to some degree, nevertheless. But what a blistering start. So I'd try to buy low right now on Matthew Tkachuk for fantasy owners. Heck, if you got Reinhardt on your roster, if you got a guy like Tyler Toffoli from New Jersey Devils, because with the Devils, they still got Bratt, they still got Hughes, they still got Dougie Hamilton. They got players. So Toffoli, I would trade Toffoli for Matthew Tkachuk in a heartbeat. Heck, I may even do that for DeBrincat as well. Your guy over there in Detroit, JT. I would for sure. Yeah, and you got both of them, right? Exactly. I mean, so that just goes to show you why you're just killing it in the league right now in our home league. But I expect Florida to start scoring at a higher pace once they get Montour back, once they get Ekblad back on that blue line. They both of those guys have actually, they're injured. It looks like Montour is very close to coming back. Ekblad, I'm not really sure, but I know Montour is pretty darn close. He went on then with this road trip here. He hasn't been cleared yet, but he's actually been skating in practice. That's huge for owners who actually drafted Montour a bit late because he is a top 5 defenseman in fantasy in most formats. So, but once both those guys come back, they've both spent time on the power play. And I think once they get involved, they kind of feel like they had their full team back. And I think this team's going to take off offensively. And when I say this team, I think Tkachuk, and I think Barkov, and I think all of them is going to be, and Florida's really, really good. So I expect a fantasy perspective. Once those guys come back, it's really going to help out.
Yeah, from a gambling perspective, this is a team we usually like to jump on because we like the possibility, we like the offense, we like to do. And it's a team we have completely ignored lately. We have been staying away from every player, every prop, every game with them lately. And I think our plan is to keep doing that until we see something change. Because just right now, it's just not smart betting.
So a little bit with that defenseman, right? Once they get their defenseman back, I think that maybe you give them a little bit, 2 to 3 weeks after they get their full core defenseman back, then go ahead and start looking at those prop bets for Florida, because I think now they're going to come together as a team. They're going to really start to produce like they were last year, and they'll start producing in bunches. I mean, you'll see Tkachuk just go nuts. But for the play right now until those defensemen, come back is – I like them, going the under on total goals scored in Florida's games so far. In the 4 of the last 5 games, they've been under the 5.5. They got teams like Chicago coming up. Chicago doesn't score. Columbus coming up. They don't score. Washington, they're starting to get their act together, but still, Washington is not that great this year. And Carolina, how Carolina's scoring this year more than they normally do, but nevertheless, they've always been traditionally a team that wins with defense, with goaltending as well. So I really like Florida for the under 6.5. You could probably get it somewhere in the neighborhood of like minus 130 continuing over the next week and a half. Bet those guys over the next week and a half, the under 6.5 goals, I would say probably 75 to 8% time is going to go. That's the play.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, ride that slide while you can. If it's going to be that way, they're not scoring goals, stick with that for now. So I like that. Coming down the last couple of minutes of the show here, we're going to jump into the final face-off here, Toast. What do you got here for the final face-off?
JT, I just really want my fantasy teams to perform. They've underperformed. That just goes to show you. You can listen to all the podcasts you want. You can read all the articles you want. You can actually watch all the hockey you want. But really, a lot of times it comes down this early in the season to just flat out luck. You draft players based on their pedigree, their historical statistics they've actually put out, and also too based on maybe the schedule that they've seen. But even this year, the NHL's got an odd schedule so far, a very very odd schedule. Even this week, man. I mean, this so yesterday was a Tuesday, and we only play 4 games. I'm sorry, like I don't. I, actually I don't. I'm sorry. Yesterday being a Tuesday, I think I only played 2 games, and today Wednesday being 4 games. Just a very odd schedule altogether. So my philosophy of targeting players who shoot the puck, when I told new fantasy managers you need to target players who shoot the puck and they're on the ice all the time, anywhere from 19 to 20 minutes a night. Get those players. That hasn't worked out for me so far. So I think it will average out, but right now it's been pretty frustrating. But a couple, lasting impressions here for the listeners. Players to sell high on right now. DeBrincat, not because he's been bad, because he haven't. He's been outstanding. But we talk about that getting 2 players for 1. If your team needs it and you're a little bit top heavy, kind of like Edmonton is every single year, if you have DeBrincat, you may consider actually doing a 2 for 1 there and actually balancing out the team a little bit more. Frank Petrano with Anaheim is ridiculous. He's shooting at a stupid percentage. He's got 9 goals. He's leading the league in goals. Sell him right now. That's you get you get another guy on a good team with a top power play deployment who's actually done it year in year out. Sell high on Frank Petrano. Same could be said for Sam Reinhart as well, even though I probably would actually hold on to Reinhart, but I wouldn't fault anybody for selling a high on him. Brock Besser, I'm going to just say predict right now that Brock Besser started off the year 4 goals in the very first game. Since then, he's had 2 more goals. He's got 6 goals and assists for 7 points through 9 games with Vancouver. Great start, but you score 4 goals on opening night. I would sell Besser. That's what I would do. And then again, Ryan Hartman with Minnesota as well. Another sell high target. He's playing out of his mind right now with the absence of Matt Boldy. Once Boldy actually comes back in Minnesota, and he's pretty darn close to doing that, Boldy will actually get to deployment. There's no doubt about that. And Hartman, he probably will be the guy out. I mean, so this is going to be short-lived. So fantasy managers, get on that now. Get rid of Hartman while you can, because once Boldy gets back, that's going to change. The other players to actually buy low on right now, Johnny Gaudreau for Columbus. Columbus really just hadn't had a whole lot of luck. If you actually look at their detailed numbers, and I'm not going to actually go into those right now, but nevertheless, their expected goals for is much higher than actually what they've got so far. So I would say Gaudreau and Line better days ahead for them. And we already mentioned Matthew Tkachuk with Florida, goal and 6 assists, so 7 points to 8 or 9 games. That's still great, you know what I mean? So, but if you can end up trading, or you can end up getting a Matthew Tkachuk, end up actually packaging a guy like Reinhart or somebody else for a Matthew Tkachuk, do that in a heartbeat. Don't hesitate. But this next week coming up, JT, I'm going to try to go ahead and watch a little bit more hockey, get plugged back in. Got the Halloween out of me. You know, I'll still be watching some shows. But yeah, and we're going into, I think we advertise this as week 3, but really technically we're in week 4 right now. We're on a Wednesday, but we're in the middle.
Week 3 recap. Week 4.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in the mix. We're in the mix there. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of week 3 recap. Heading into week 4 is kind of where we're at. So, but that was the final face off from Toast. Check him out at Toast Clark on the X. Make sure you check out his Toast Takes. Put on his favorite bets of the week. If you're a gambler, jump on there, see what you like. Usually put a variety of things together, some individual plays, some prop bets, parlays. We kind of do a little bit of everything on there. Check me out at JT Orange on the X as well. Any final thoughts, Toast?
Nope, just keep actually watching hockey. Again, if fantasy managers, if you guys are frustrated with the NHL schedule so far, join the club. We all are. I think that actually shakes out in week 5 or week 6, where it kind of settles down into the norm, where we can actually get some games every night instead of just this odd schedule again that the NHL has actually put out. Very, very odd. So, but that's all. Can't wait till next week, and look forward to chatting with you again, JT.
Yeah, check us out every Wednesday night, usually somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock Central Time is when you go on. But always check out our podcast the next day on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. This has been NHL Around the Ice with JT and Toast here on the Stew with JT Brew. Thanks for joining us. Check you next time.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with